Games, board games. I might be talking about board games, but I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and today I will share the 4 board games that I played where I went yesterday to the Salisbury. It was fun playing games. It was very fun for me and board games. I'll talk about something new. Something I made where it's built for 2 people who color in one single sheet, and they are trying to compete to make it look more like the objective that they have, and then they go over to ask a quick judge, not for a chat, but to just ask, hey, which one does it look more like? Board games is what I'm talking about. Board games, I'm not going to shout. So, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I am Bez. It is 10 a.m. UK time. Time for another Bezzy Beats and Board Game Blether. And it's episode 580. And I realise that I should definitely start planning my 600th episode. I haven't done that as of yet, but I do have Amabel Holland is going to come onto the show. I did reach out, and I have been talking to a couple of the guests from the last 80 episodes. I'm going to make sure to reach out to all the guests that I've had over the past 80 shows, so that for episode 600, it's not going to be a 24-hour show like I've done before, but it is going to be an extended, maybe 8 hours, something like that. And hello, Timmy. It is lovely to see you, and I hope that you're very well. How are you doing today? What's up? I am today going to talk about my new game. It's a Roland color thing. I already had so many projects, but I guess I just feel the need to keep doing more stuff. Yeah, that's basically it. Obviously, if you haven't already, then please do check out my Kickstarter, and I will share the link to my Kickstarter in the comments. Timmy says, I'm sleeping. Steeping chamomile tea. Feeling a bit sleepy. Oh, chamomile tea. Very nice, very nice. So, let's move on to recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights, what have you been up to? What have you done? I am going to tell you that yesterday I had fun. Yesterday, well, Chris came over and we got a fair bit of work done, the two of us. I did a lot of scheduling of stuff, putting stuff on Twitter. Chris helped me make my new prototype. We did a bit of scanning. I should have really colored some stuff in. So I made a new Kickstarter update, but had to search, and Chris did a whole bunch of, potential stickers. Let me actually see if I can show you the stickers that Chris made. But at around 4:30, I was aiming to be out the house. I was aiming to finish at 4:30. In the end, it was maybe 6:20. I managed to go outside, and I cycled over to the Salisbury, a lovely place where people play board games once every week, and I've not been there for ages, but it was such a delight. Getting back to what's been going on yesterday, let me share my most recent update. So firstly, we've had someone offering to do Polish translations. Marek, thank you. And Cheap Sheep offered to do German translations. Then we had potential stickers. So we are going to have stickers. This is one option. Be true to yourself. Option B. Be true to herself with the words on top. Option C with a bit more chaotic stuff, the letters on either side. This is option D. It's kind of a bit big for the screen, but yeah, with the letters in the middle. And option E with hyphens. What do you think about the hyphens? Be true to yourself. And that's like a little sticker that I imagine people being able to put on their bicycle, on their sketchpad, wherever they might generally put stickers. And currently the one that's the people's favourite is this one. That was nice wee thing. Other stuff. I played this game. I played this game twice. Does this look like a fish or a car to you? Let me know. And that is basically the game. Two players competing, colouring in something that is drawn together. You choose whichever colour you want. You try to make sure that the silhouette of your objective is visible. One of us was going for a fish. One of us was going for a car. It's not like one person had one colour, the other person had the other. We were both using both colours. But then once everything was coloured in, we took it to a judge and asked fish or car. And we waited for the reply. What do you think? We already have a winner, but I'm curious to know what you think. Then this other one, love hearts or skull. Again, we chose our colours, we chose our objectives, taking turns to colour it in, and then asking love hearts or skull, which one is it? I will talk more about that in just a moment. Let me actually drag that over here. And hello, Manuel, who says, I see a fish, but I don't know much about cars. Fair enough. And lovely to have you. I hope you are generally very well. I will talk more about this game in just a minute. I also want to talk about the other things I played. I played Ticket to Ride India. This is one I'd played once before. For those who don't know Ticket to Ride, in Ticket to Ride, you're collecting coloured cards, and these colours determine where you can put your trains. And then you're trying to put down your trains on bits of track and ideally connect two different cities. The bigger, if you've got a really big set, like on the bottom right, you can see I've got a set of like 8 long, which gives you like 21 points. Whereas a track that's like 1 long only gives you 1 point. And a track 2 long gives you 2 points. 4 gives you like 7. It starts escalating. And then the bigger deal is that you've got tickets which give you objectives. Hey, connect this city to this city. If you do it, you get these points. If you don't, you lose those points. India has a couple of interesting rules. Basically, if you make a complete circuit with 2 alternate ways, not sharing any track at all, that links 2 of your cities, that's called a mandala. And then you get 5 points for that. If you've got 4 different cards that are linked with a mandala, then you get 10 points. I mean, 2 different cards, like 4 cities, probably. If you've got 3 mandalas, then you start getting 10 points per mandala. So it was like 5, 10, 20. As it happens, one of us scored 10 points for the mandala, and they had a lot of cards on the bottom. They did end up winning, black player. I was locked out from one thing. It feels, honestly, this rule is almost a distraction to the genius that is this board. It is just a brilliantly balanced board. There's tight competition. This feels so much better than USA or Europe. If those are the only things you've played and you want something that has not much more complexity, but a real cutthroat attitude, I would heartily suggest India. It's just such a lovely map for Ticket to Ride. And we've got Century Spice Road. So for those who don't know Century Spice Road, you've got a bunch of cards that you might take turns to grab. Each of these cards is giving you actions, and the actions might be, hey, get a couple of free cubes, or upgrade your cubes, or convert these cubes to more cubes. And the thing about these cards is that they're generally netting you about to maybe 3 points per action, and then eventually convert the potential points with the cubes into actual points with objective cards, which are on the top row. So yeah, here you can see 6 points, and it's always very mathematically calculated. Yellow is worth 1, red is worth 2. So therefore 2 yellows and 2 reds, if you have the opportunity, it gives you 6 points. Conversely, greens are worth 3. So you can see 2 yellows, 2 reds, and 2 greens. That's actually 13 points. It should be 12, but they're giving you 1 bonus point because having 6 is quite a big opportunity cost. You are only allowed to have 10 cubes on your board, and also when you convert stuff, you're allowed to do multiple times. So there you see the 3 reds going into 4 different cubes. If you had 6 reds, you could do it twice. But again, you can only have so many cubes on your board. So it's got this delightful engine building, looking for synergies and trying to work out how to optimize your path. It is a lovely game. And finally, we played this game, which I didn't take any pictures of at the time. So I took a few pictures of when I got back. A game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your beetroots. We played a black and white edition. Here's a few of my favorite cards. Yeah, the Kickstarter for that is going reasonably well. I was expecting more of an uptick at the end, I'm going to admit. If we look at the campaign, so it's still on 271 backers. It's still only my 3rd most successful. I was expecting it to be like once it's 281, then I'll celebrate because it's like boom, it's my 2nd most successful Kickstarter. That feels like a big thing. When I say 2nd most successful, I mean entirely in terms of number of backers. That's how I'm counting it, because sure, this number, the financial goal, that matters a lot, as does how much people like it after the fact, how much energy it takes me to make the thing, how much stress, how quickly I deliver it. All of these things matter. But for me, the thing that matters more than any other number is simply 271 backers. I did believe that by having real value for the £1 pledge level, where you're getting all the print and play files and some colouring in sheets and even like a whole extra game, I thought that people would be jumping onto it. But it hasn't quite happened like it did for my previous one. I'll probably continue doing this, £1 print and play, but I'll kind of, keep re-evaluating it as time goes on. But that is my personal what I was up to yesterday. What have you been up to? What are some of your recent highlights? What have you done? If you had to say, yes, these are the best bits of my day, I would say the best bits of my day, cycling down, feeling the satisfaction of having cycled, seeing Chris come over, working together. It's a delight, and that's why, I pay Chris to actually for their travel costs and time. Takes them a couple of hours to get here, but those were definitely the highlights of my day. Let's crack on and talk about a brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? As usual, let's be broad about the subject. I'm going to say colouring in is a brilliant thing. So if we go back to this, I think there is definitely a satisfaction in colouring in. Even if you're following the lines, it's a form of self-expression. It's a form of, hey, I am going to put my mark down on this bit of paper. And I mean, like some of these bits, you can see that are maybe coloured in a bit more scribbly. Some of them are coloured in more solidly. I feel like there's even like a sense of self-expression by which side of the pen you use. I always start off with the outline and then I colour it in the centre, whereas my opponent was doing it in a slightly different way. I know that sounds like a small thing. colouring in, I just feel it's for a moment, you know what you've got to do. It's not complicated, it's not difficult, especially in this sort of paint by numbers. Don't bother with any blending. You just do a thing. There's no sense of judgment. There's no how good was your colouring. There's no how good was your blending. How good was your art. It's just an opportunity to colour in. And maybe you chat. Like, you make your decision, you decide which bit to colour in, and then once you're doing that, you've got maybe 5 seconds, even 3 seconds of, and this tiny snippet of you're just focusing on that moment. And maybe you even ask the other person a question, oh, how do you live far, or get to know them a wee bit. And I think that's the lovely thing about colouring in, getting to sort of see them. So yes, as always, feel free to comment, ask questions from like follow. If you've got any super off-topic questions, then that's fine, as long as they are respectful. That is the key thing. That's what I look for, ultimately. RESPECT. I'll tell you what it means to me. It means... why did I ask myself that question? Respect means treating other people as a human being, treating other people as humans that have value, not as possessions, not as someone who you have complete ownership or control of. That's really problematic. So yes, I might not go on a date on Sunday because I've only been communicating online and the person is not very respectful. So I don't want someone who says, when you come, make sure that you're wearing this. I mean, that's... Anyway, let's not get into there. Games by Manuel says, there's absolutely a pleasure and calm in colouring in. It's half the fun in Second Chance. It's a form of therapy too. And yes, absolutely. Now I'm going to broaden the topic. I'm going to talk about this particular game. This is, as you might see down below, it's a competitive game. It's not cooperative. It is a competitive game for 2 players. You're taking turns to colour in part of a picture. So when on your turn, you roll the die and it might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. You know how normal dice work. You might be able to just about tell that these sections are coloured in, numbered in, I should say. Let's see if... Yeah, here you can see it's on the black and white bit above. So it goes from 1 to 5, all the 1s on the left, the 5s on the right. And the idea is that if you roll a 6, you go anywhere. If you roll a number that's already been filled, then you go anywhere. And it's like, towards the end, it might be like, okay, there's only 3 spaces left. It's a 3 or a 4 or a 4. And if you roll a 3 or a 4, then you have to go in that area. If you roll any other number, you get to choose. And that's what you do on your turn. You have 2 pens. There has to be 2 pens. I think that the colours you choose should be part of the player's choice. And then you choose one of these pens, you colour in one of the areas, and at the end of the game, and this is the important bit, because how do you determine what it looks like? Well, you have to go outside and get someone who isn't involved in the game. It has to be someone who doesn't know who was going for which objective. If it was someone who was watching the game, that's no good. Because in this game, it was Joseph and myself, and then Kerry came along towards the end. And Kerry could sort of get an idea of who was going for the fish and who was going for the car. Whereas when you hold it up to a friend who's maybe sitting 2 tables away, or potentially even a stranger, and you ask, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? Fish or car? And then whichever answer they give first, they can't say, oh, it looks more like a car. Oh, no, maybe I think a fish. Whichever answer they give first, that is the winner. And it doesn't... The exact bits don't matter too much, but the important thing is that they don't know who is going for what. It's an objective judge, and then as objective as you can be. Obviously, if you ask someone else, they might say something different. I mean, Manuel says they saw a fish. The judge on the day said they saw a car, so you could put it on social media if you want and do some sort of vote and say, okay, once this poll closes or after a day, however you just, but you need that outside judging without anyone knowing who was actually going for what. Um, so yeah, that is the game, and that's what I want to talk about. It's a brand new idea. I came up with it last week, about maybe 9 days ago, 8 days ago, along those lines. My Kickstarter was running at the time. I was wandering around. I was thinking, oh, you know what? I like Ali Dix's roll and color games. Those are cool. Wow. I would like to make some games involving coloring stuff in. That's a nice idea. And then I was also thinking, oh, I like that Voyages game from Rory Muldoon and Matthew Dunstan. That's cool. That's nice. I would like to make a game where you print one sheet of paper and then you color it in. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, how do I make something similar? Well, coloring in, what can you do? Maybe you color in something and maybe you try to make it look like a picture. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Well, how the easiest way to make a challenge is to introduce another player who's got the contrasting or conflicting objectives. So maybe if you are going for one thing and they are going for another thing, and then let's see if I can actually show you the first ever sheet. So this was the first ever one, and I will actually have to count the number of spaces, but I was told that here there are too many spaces. But I think the real issue was that there's too many unimportant spaces, because at the bottom I felt like I needed to separate it by lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as you can see, and the bits, like, not every space is really meaningful. Conversely, with this game, with the fish car, I tried to make it so that the lines, if there's a wheel, it's represented twice. So if you fail to get the wheel, then the bits around it will be kind of more obvious. So you'll have a second chance of getting the wheel. And there's multiple curves that go around the fish. So if you mess up on one of them, then maybe you'll get the other one. And it's all about getting those contrasting colors to bring out the silhouette of your thing. And anyway, I had that idea, and then on Friday I was like, okay, let's try and make the thing. And yeah, I made the thing, and I played it. Let me see if I can actually. I played it 3 times that day, last Friday. We played it. I think this might. I can't remember which game this was, but this was one of the games. So this was Skull or Ghost, and this one was me sort of seeing how small I can make it to see. Oh no, to see if this is a viable size, and I think that this is definitely too small. I think about A5-ish is probably the correct size, but yeah, I tried it, and then I was told, okay, maybe you want to bring more wild cards in. I want to say that Maya, and was it also Manuel? I think it was Maya and Manuel, all the people with names beginning with M. Let me actually double check. So I'm part of a lovely Discord called The Place. Yes, it was indeed Manuel and Maya who said, maybe you should actually just not even have dice. And if you don't have dice, it's going to be a really thinky, abstract strategy game, because then you'll be like, okay, as soon as I play on the edge of where my picture should be, the other player is going to play next to it and obstruct it. So really, I want to play internally to my picture, and maybe even play somewhere where there's 2 things that matter next to it. Maybe play somewhere that's meaningless, so that if they ever play somewhere that's meaningful, then I can either, because whatever color something is has no relevance, and in a sense, the first turn is kind of the worst turn to have, because whether the fish is whether that internal bit of the fish or the car is blue or coral doesn't really matter. It's all about at what point you have the contrast. If all of the wheel bits were the same color, then that's obviously terrible for the car player. If all of the curvy bits were the same color, then obviously that's terrible for the fish player. And it's all about how you react to it. So as soon as something in a potentially meaningful spot has been played, then you react to it either with the same color next to it to disguise that silhouette, or with the contrasting color to accentuate that silhouette. And it's definitely a thought process that I've not seen in any other game. I mean, I hope I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm genuinely really excited by it. Now, there's definitely some design work in the fundamental rules to be done, exploring whether this zero randomness game would work, whether that is too stressful, and then there's a bit of content design to be done in terms of how many shapes should be in the picture, how big should it be, what are some good shapes that go well with one another, should there be a variation in size of shape. I know that Joseph, I asked them about that, and Joseph said, oh yes, absolutely, I really like that there's some big bits, some little bits, some meaningful bits, some less meaningful bits. It means that you actually have to think, and it means that your choices actually matter, which I appreciate. I wonder, like, exactly how precise the silhouettes or outlines of each of the shapes should be. Yeah, there's definitely going to be a little bit of development and content design, but I think that it's probably going to be quite quick, possibly even within the next week and a bit, that I will be like, okay, boom, that is the rules all set, and then I'll spend another month, whatever, working on the exact maps and the exact things. Also, this is a game that it feels really easy to playtest, to give me information, to give me feedback, and also once you finished it, then I get a really visible form of, okay, this is what these players were doing. And so, yeah, just in terms of balancing the game, I'm not saying that car and fish have to win both of them 50% of the time, but it would be a nice thing to aim for. It would be nice if Love Hearts and Skull were both roughly equally viable, that sure, maybe there's one that's easier to do, and then that becomes part of the setup of the game. Which one do you go for? But yeah. And then the other question in my mind is, how many sheets do I need to make for this? Is it going to be the kind of thing where people play the same sheet over and over? Like, would they play the same thing 3, 4, 5, 10 times? Or would they just want to play a different sheet each time? Is the value in this game really in making, I don't know, an entire book of like 50 sheets, something quite, yeah, massive like that? But let me know what you think. And honestly, this is going to be a short show. That is all that I have left to say. So if you have any comments about this game, if you have any suggestions, if you have like any things that you think I should put into the sheets. I had a little, if I open up my text document, I had a little sheet of simple objects. There we go. So my list of simple objects that I wrote down for myself were skull, love heart, tree, ghost, car, fish, jumper, birds, which I've made all of those, eye, boat, smiley face, and what I'm also thinking of having there is person, like a little stick figure person, and bicycle. I think that there's definitely a lot more stuff that could be added. And you could even have different combinations. I think it might be interesting to have a love heart ghost. versus a love heart skull, for example. But I think they both drawings should be a similar level of complexity. For example, I think love heart and skull are things that people are primed to see, and I also think that they need to be very different shapes to make it so that there's some competition over the edges of things. Because back, if you look at this one, where skull and ghost, no matter which thing you are, you want this top bit to be rounded. So there is absolutely no difference. That's uninteresting. That means that who who cares about this top bit? It doesn't matter. And yeah, the only bit that matters really is this bottom bit. But yeah, the whole thing should matter, which is why I wouldn't do fish eye. Like I wouldn't have both of them potentially being this sort of, you know, they have a similar shape. Like they've got this kind of pointy bit, at least at one end. The fish is going to be pointy at one end. Sure, the eye will be pointy at two ends. But you can imagine if it was pointy at two ends, you could imagine it was like the fish, the end of the fish's body. Yeah, you want to have things that are very different. It's like something that's maybe straight where the other thing has rounded angles. One thing that has round bits like wheels where it doesn't make sense for the other object at all. And also similar levels of complexity. And I think they do want to be relatively simple, like, but also relatively something you would think of. But again, when you ask the judge, you are going to present it as love heart or skull. Excuse me, do you mind if I ask you a question? Car or fish? And the person will be, I guess it looks, and people will generally respond. And the other thing I like about it is that if you really don't want to talk to strangers, you can just text it, WhatsApp it to a friend, ask a friend, yeah, and whatever they come back with, or ask on social media. And if this game actually gets released, I would say that if people don't know anyone, they can put it on Twitter and tag me, and I will not only make a poll and I will not only retweet it, but I will make sure to answer. So then I will, as long as they put like a long timeline on the post, I'm not promising to be on Twitter every single day, even when I'm on holiday. But then that, I think that would be quite fun. So they would be guaranteed at least one vote from me. And yeah, it would just be, I just love this idea of like, hey, fish or heart. And if it gets too much, then I might have to make a separate Twitter account for it. But I think that would be quite fun to see all these things and be, oh, is that one a love heart or a skull? Oh, I think that this person's brought out the skull more. Oh, I think that this person's brought out the love hearts more. Anyway, but if you do want to play in person, it brings you closer to other individuals. So, for example, last night when I played it, there were at least two players that there was one player that I would not have interacted with at all. There was one other player at another table that I had spoken to earlier, and we used them as a judge, and we said, hey, Mal, love heart or skull? And Mal looked at it and said, I think that's a love heart. And I said, oh, thank you. And then we went back and we worked out who the winner was. And then next time I was, I'm so sorry, what's your name? And he said, oh, Scott. And I said, Scott, can I ask you, fish or car? And then Scott ummed and ahed and eventually said, oh, I think, yep, I see the car now. It is the car. And I'm not saying that Scott and I are best friends or anything, but it brought us closer together. And I think there's a lovely little thing there where if you ask a stranger in a cafe, sure, it might just be like, oh, that's a love heart. But then it might also be like, oh, that's a love heart. And why are you asking? And, oh, that sounds interesting. And then you might get into a conversation. Or alternatively, you might have to be prepared for an occasional person to say, oh, I don't have time. And then you ask a second person. But I do think that there's something really nice about bringing people together. Anyway, that is me. And at this point, as always, Question of the day, question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. So my question to you is quite simply, yeah, love heart or skull? That's the first question. What do you see here? Do you see a love heart or a skull? Which one is it closer to you in your opinion? Um, and yeah, do you have any other ideas for simple objects that you could portray just as a silhouette? Let's talk about over to you. What are you up to? You can share bottomly if you want to. What are you up to? Is there something that you want to do? Is there something that you need to do? I mean, want and need. Need for what purpose? I mean, frankly, there's nothing I need to do. I mean, like, if I'm not bothered, like, I was going to get really dark, but then I thought maybe that's inappropriate. But, like, yeah, I could say I need to write surveys, firstly for the people who helped me at Terracon, to do a post feedback survey to make sure they're okay, to make sure they're happy with how they were treated, to check in if there's anything else that they would like going forward, to check if there's anything that I should change for future. And I need to make a survey for UK Games Expo. But do I need to do that? I mean, I could not bother making games ever again. I could cancel my Kickstarter. I could stop making games today. Like, I have that power. And it's important to remember, like, we have the power to do things. But there are things that I would, I mean, there are some things that I would enjoy doing, the act of doing. There are some things that I would enjoy having been done, if you know what I mean. The things that I would enjoy doing today are, and it's always a mixture, isn't it? Like, I was going to say stir frying some peppers, and I would enjoy doing that, but I would also feel a sense of achievement once it's done, because those peppers are starting to go bad, and I want to make sure that I actually use them. Just stir fry them, just don't need to even add anything else. There's some celery, maybe I can chop that up, because I should have eaten that celery a while ago. Just chop it up with some garlic, peppers, celery, garlic, boom, that's my lunch. That's what I'm going to have for breakfast. That's what I'm going to do. I'm also going to make sure that I get out, because I find that I smile more when I take a walk outside. Truth be told, I don't get enough exercise. I'm smiling in the sun, looking round at everyone, and I go and see all the birds and the noises that I've heard, and it's a lovely thing for a lark just walking in the park, and I truly am so blessed to be near a park. For to walk there is like a rest. Anyway, so that's what I'm looking forward to the process of doing, but I'm also kind of looking forward to doing a bit of colouring in. I'm going to start exploring. I'm going to try using these oil pastels that I said I would use for a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your radishes. And if I can actually show my Kickstarter page. 272. Amazing. Someone's backed in the last wee bit. Fantastic. And if you haven't checked out my Kickstarter, then please do check it out. I will do one more link. But yes, I'm going to make sure to walk outside. I am going to make sure to write a survey for previous convention. I'm going to try and work out stuff for Now Play This. I'm going to try and go onto social media less, because with a Kickstarter going, there's always a temptation to just be, oh, social media. Oh, I've not checked the other thing. Let's see if anyone's replied. And sure, but leave it like an hour. Leave it a while. Take time. I mean, you don't need to be checking every 5 minutes, and it can be so addictive, like especially at this time. But yeah, I'm going to try, and that's pretty much me sorting out conventions, pondering games, preparing for the playtest, doing a bit of colouring in. The colouring in is the bulk of what I would like to do. And also making sure to take some time, cook some food, walk outside. Tonight, I am going to be back streaming at a special stream around 9 p.m. UK time. That is maybe 4 p.m. ET, no, 5 p.m. ET, so Eastern time, because the daylight saving time, so that's a different time to the UK. It's maybe a bit later if you're in Europe, but it's 9 p.m. UK time. I will be back here. I'll actually set up that stream right after this, and it'll be a celebratory stream. I will be chatting about it, answering any questions, and celebrating for the last hour of the Kickstarter. And we will look through all the questions and everything together. I mean, right now, I don't think I'm showing anything private, but like, yeah, I see like there's 7 replies here. So people have said, yes, A is the best. Oh, Greg Matthews also says A, but the beetroots in D and the landscape. Okay, so let's see how D looked. Okay. Ah, the chaotic way of, yep, I do like the chaotic look of D, but people like the landscape orientation and the text. Okay. So we're still able to do some stuff. We're unlikely to make more. We might make one more stretch goal. I would expect us to get to 300 backers, but we'll have to see. I'll expect us to not make 300 copies sold, but we'll have to see. And yep, I will be talking about that and carrying on later tonight, in about 10 and a bit hours. So for now, basically, I talked about the games that I played. I talked about this prototype, which I'm really excited by and proud of. It seems to be very different. I talked about Ticket to Ride India, which is a lovely game. I mean, the Mandela thing, it's a cool rule, but more importantly, it's just a really, really nicely balanced board. Century Spice Road, I do like it. It's like got quite a nice bit of engine building satisfaction going on. And yeah, I'm also quite chuffed with how these photos turned out. And like I'm still enjoying the game, which is good. Like I generally play with my offhand. I make sure to play with my left hand. But yeah, so for now, I guess I've been Bez. If you want to check me out, I'm Stuff by Bez everywhere. Stuffbybez.com, Twitter.com/StuffByBez, Instagram.com/StuffByBez. I stream on Twitch every day at 10 a.m. UK time and tonight at 9 p.m. UK time. YouTube also has my streams and you can watch them after the fact. Stuffbybez.com/Discord. And if you want to find out what I'm streaming about in the future, oh, I should actually pop that in my thing. Closing ceremony. That might sound a bit too grandiose, but let's go with it. And I've popped that in the calendar. So tonight we're having the closing ceremony. Tomorrow, as always, on Fridays, it's a tiny, tiny show, 5 minutes. Saturday, speaking to Joseph Kelly. Sunday, I don't know. Feel free to suggest something. Monday next week, I am going to be chatting with Ree and Laurie about something to do with environmental friendliness in games. On Tuesday, I'll be talking all about Aircon chat with Mark Cook, one of the people who organised it. On Wednesday next week, I'll be chatting to Jess Medringham and chatting about finishing off Kickstarters, the emotions about it, and how Jess feels about the final bits of her Kickstarter. We'll make that into a regular thing where Jess and I talk about each other's stuff. And then that's what we've got going on for the next week. But for now, lots of love. Feel free to share, spread the word. Thank you very much, everyone who popped in. Thank you, Timmy. Thank you, Manuel. And for now, the only thing left to say is bye bye, bye bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye bye, bye bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye bye, bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye, bye bye. And now it's time to go through. Bye bye, bye bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye bye, bye bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye bye, bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye, bye bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye. Bye.